Daf Yomi, Tractate Bava Metzia, page 7b, top of the page, with the words Maishna Liad Dayan. The Gemara asks, what is different about the case where the promissory note fell into the possession of a judge such that the creditor cannot retrieve it to collect the debt? Rava said this is what the Braita is saying. But in the case of another individual who is neither the debtor nor the creditor, who found a promissory note that had already fallen into the possession of a judge, it may never be removed from his possession until proof is provided. What are the circumstances? What does it mean that the promissory note had fallen into the possession of a judge? Is it a case where the court wrote in the promissory note a ratification certifying that it examined and ratified the note and it can be used to collect the debt? And the reason the Braita refers specifically to these circumstances is that it is not necessary to state that in a case where there is no ratification written in the promissory note, that the creditor cannot use it to collect the debt, as it can be said that the debtor wrote the document because he intended to borrow the money, but he ultimately did not borrow it. Rather, the Braita states that even in a case where the ratification written in the promissory note, as it is now a ratified promissory note, the finder should not return it to the creditor, as we suspect that there was repayment, meaning that the debtor may have repaid the debt and he lost the promissory note. The Gemara discusses the continuation of the Braita, and Rabbi Yossi says the promissory note retains its presumptive status. The Gemara explains, and we do not suspect that there was repayment. Had the debt been repaid, the debtor would have immediately destroyed the promissory note. The Gemara asks, but does Rabbi Yossi not suspect that there was repayment? But isn't it taught in a Braita, if one found a marriage contract in the marketplace in a case where the husband admits that he has not yet paid the amount written in the contract to his wife, the finder must return the document to the wife. In a case when the husband does not admit this, but instead claims that he has already paid the amount written in the contract, the one who found it should not return it to this one, the husband, or to that one, the wife. You shouldn't return it, or to that one. You shouldn't return it. Okay, Rabbi Yossi says that there is a distinction between different situations. If the wife is still under the auspices of her husband, meaning that she is still married to him, the one who found the marriage contract must return it to the wife because presumably the husband did not pay her the amount specified in the marriage contract during their marriage. If the wife was widowed or divorced, he should not return it to this party, the husband or the heirs, his heirs, or to that party, or the wife, as perhaps she already received the payment and the contract was later lost by her husband or his heirs. In this case, Rabbi Yossi suspects that there was payment. The Gemara answers reverse the order of the Tanaim and the Braita and teach as follows. If the promissory note fell into the possession of a judge, it may never be removed. This is a statement of Rabbi Yossi, and the rabbis say it retains its presumptive status. The Gemara asks, if so, the contradiction between the statements of the rabbis, between the statement of the rabbis in this Braita and the statement of the rabbis with regard to the case of the marriage contract is difficult. Whereas according to the amended version of the Braita, the rabbis do not take into account the possibility that the debt was repaid. In the case of the marriage contract, the rabbis take this possibility into account. The Gemara resolves the problem. The Braita that discusses the marriage contract is entirely in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. It contains no dispute, and the Braita is incomplete. And this is what it is teaching. In a case where the husband does not admit that he did not pay the marriage contract, the one who found it should not return it to this party or to that party. In what case is this statement said? It is said in a case where the woman was widowed or divorced. But if she is still under the auspices of her husband, the finder must return it to the wife. As Rabbi Yossi says, if she is still under the auspices of her husband, the finder must return it to the wife. If she was widowed or divorced, he should not return it to this party or to that party. Rav Papa Amar, Rav Papa said, actually do not reverse the opinions in the Braita, but instead resolve the contradiction differently. Rabbi Yossi was telling the rabbis that what the halacha should be in the case of a marriage contract, according to their statement. That means according to their opinion, that one who finds a promissory note needs to take into account that the debt may have been repaid already. His statement should be understood as follows. In my opinion, even if she was widowed or divorced, we do not suspect that there was payment. But according to your opinion, concede to me, in any event, that while she is under the auspices of her husband, the finder should return the document to the wife, as the marriage contract is not yet subject to payment. Since the husband is not yet liable to pay, it is unlikely that he paid. And the rabbis said to him in response, even if they are still married, say that he gave her bundles of money, and in exchange, she gave him back the marriage contract. If the finder then returns the marriage contract to the wife, that would enable her to collect the sum twice. Ravina said, actually, reverse the order of the Tanaim. In the first Braita, which discusses one who finds a promissory note, and resolve the contradiction between different statements of the rabbis as follows. The reason for the opinion of the rabbis here, that a marriage contract cannot be returned to the wife, is that we suspect that the husband wrote 2 marriage contracts. After the first marriage contract was lost, the husband had to write a second one in its stead. Returning to the wife the marriage contract that was found would enable her to collect twice. And Rabbi Yossi holds that it should be returned to the wife because he does not suspect that the husband wrote 2 marriage contracts. In his opinion, it is a rare occurrence. Rabbi Elazar says, with regard to the dispute between Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel and Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, in the case of a creditor and a debtor both grasping a promissory note, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel holds that they divide the promissory note evenly, specifically in a case where both are grasping the standard part of the promissory note. Just trying to imagine how that could be. They're like, how are they grasping this promissory note? And that's a long time until they can get to the court. I mean, just think about the unlikeliness of it. Just try to describe the case. They're grasping it. They find it in a room. They both grab onto it at the same time. And they go all the way to court grabbing this note. Whoa. Highly unlikely. I mean, and they actually go to court still holding on to this. It's just like... Anyway, in other words, the part that contains a standard formulation of the note, or both are grasping the essential part of this promissory note. The essential part of the promissory note, as if we had a microscope to see where the names of the creditor and debtor are written, as well as the amount owed and the date. But if one of them is grasping the standard part and the other one is grasping the essential part, they divide the promissory note between them based on the section that each of them is holding. Who's going to see this? Anyway, okay. This one takes the standard part and that one takes the essential part. Rabbi Yochanan says, actually, they divide everything equally. The Gemara asks, with regard to Rabbi Yochanan's statement, and does he hold that this is the halacha even in a case where one is grasping the standard part and one the essential part? But isn't it taught in the Braita that was cited above with regard to a garment? This one takes up to where his hand reaches, and that one takes up to where his hand reaches. Here as well, if one is grasping the standard part and the other is grasping the essential part, they should take the parts that they are holding. The Gemara answers, no. This halakha that Rabbi Yochanan stated is necessary for a case where the essential part is located in the middle. He was not discussing the case where one was grasping the standard part and the other one was grasping the essential part. In that case, he would agree that each one takes the part he was grasping. Okay. The Gemara asks, if so, what is the purpose of stating that they divided equally? That is obvious. The Gemara answers, no, it is necessary in a case where the essential part of the document is closer to one of them. Lest you say that the one to whom the essential part is closer can say to the other one, divide it in this manner, leaving the essential part on my side. Rabbi Yochanan teaches that the other one can say to him in response, what did you see that led you to divide it in that manner? Divide it in this manner so that we will both share the essential part. I think we can do this. Rabbi Achbar Difti said to Ravina, according to the opinion of Rabbi Elazar, who says that this one takes the standard part and that one takes the essential part, why do either of them need it? Does he need half of the document to cover the opening of this flask? Having had a promissory note is of no legal consequence. Ravina said to him, the division in question is not division of the document itself, with each taking half of the paper. It is a division of its monetary value, as the value of each section of the promissory note is compared to the value of the other. The one grasping the essential part of the promissory note, which contains the date, can say this, consider a promissory note that has a date, the date written on it. How much is it worth? And consider a promissory note that does not have the date written on it. How much is it worth? The significance of writing the date if the creditor is in possession of a promissory note that has the date written on it, he can collect his debt even from lien property that has been sold by the debtor to another individual after taking the loan. But if a creditor is in possession of the other kind of promissory note, meaning the one that does not have the date written on it, he cannot collect his debt from lien property. Therefore, the other party who is grasping the standard part of the document gives him the difference between the two values. And this is also true in general with regard to cases where we said that the two litigants divide the disputed item. The reference is to the monetary value and not division of the actual item. As if you do not say so, but rather you hold that the item itself is divided. In the case of two people who come to court holding a garment, do they also divide the garment itself into two? But by doing so, they would ruin it. The Gemara rejects this proof. This is not difficult, as it is possible to explain that they actually cut the garment in two.